On the planet Viridia, Commander Kira stood atop the ceremonial platform, her purple skin glistening with sweat and victory. Around her lay 6 of her planet's strongest warriors, all groaning in defeat. Her dark wavy hair, once perfectly arranged, now hung wild around her shoulders as she surveyed the crowd with cold satisfaction. "Does anyone else wish to challenge me?" Her voice carried across the arena, met only with silence and averted gazes. On Viridia, strength determined everything: respect, position, mating rights. As the strongest female in 3 generations, Kira had risen to command the elite guard. No male dared approach her. None could match her speed, power, or tactical mind. This was how she preferred it. Weakness disgusted her. "Commander," her second Talix approached cautiously. "The Earth delegation has arrived." Kira frowned. Humans. Soft, fragile creatures who relied on technology rather than physical prowess. The diplomatic mission was a waste of time, but the Council insisted on entertaining potential allies. "Fine, I'll greet them after I clean up," she said, walking toward the bathing chambers. An hour later, Kira strode into the reception hall, her ceremonial armor gleaming. The human delegation stood in a small cluster, looking uncomfortably hot in Viridia's harsh climate. All except one. He stood slightly apart, examining a war mural with genuine interest. Unlike the others in their formal attire, he wore simple clothes that showed the lean muscle beneath. His skin was tanned, his hair dark and cut short. "You're looking at the Battle of Twin Cliffs," Kira said, approaching him. "Our greatest victory." The human turned, and Kira found herself staring into eyes the color of Viridia's deep oceans. He didn't flinch at her height or purple skin like most outsiders. "I'm Elian Reyes," he said, extending a hand. "Earth's military liaison." She ignored the gesture. "Commander Kira, I lead the Viridian Guard." Instead of withdrawing his hand awkwardly as she expected, he simply dropped it casually, unperturbed. "Impressive title. I watched your demonstration in the arena. Your fighting style is remarkable." Kira studied him, surprised he'd observed her combat. "It wasn't a demonstration. It was a challenge fight. Even more impressive." His eyes held hers steadily. Something about his calm demeanor irritated her. All beings showed deference to her. Fear, awe, or at least caution. This human showed none. "Our species evolved in 3 times Earth's gravity," she said, stepping closer, using her height advantage. "I could break your bones with minimal effort." Elian didn't back away. He didn't stiffen or swallow nervously. He simply nodded, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. "Physics says you're right. But there's more to confrontation than physical strength, Commander." Kira felt a strange sensation in her chest. Not anger, something unfamiliar. Before she could respond, the diplomatic formalities began. Throughout the evening, she found her attention repeatedly drawn to Elian. Unlike his nervous colleagues, he moved with quiet confidence. When called upon to speak, his words were measured, intelligent. Even more intriguing, he showed respect to everyone regardless of their strength ranking, a concept alien to Viridian culture. Later, when she deliberately bumped into him with enough force to make most stumble, he simply adjusted his stance and remained upright. "Is that a traditional Viridian greeting, Commander?" he asked, amusement in his eyes. For the first time in years, Kira felt off balance, not physically, but mentally. This human didn't cower, didn't posture, didn't seem impressed or intimidated by her. Instead of satisfaction when others feared her, she felt a strange emptiness. That night, lying in her quarters, Kira couldn't stop thinking about ocean blue eyes that looked at her not as a terrifying warrior to be appeased, but as a person to be understood. It was unsettling, and for the first time in her life, she anticipated tomorrow with something other than calculated ambition. 3 days into the diplomatic mission, Kira found reasons to observe Elian Reyes. He participated in discussions with intelligence, asking thoughtful questions about Viridian culture, rather than focusing solely on resources and trade like his colleagues. When not in meetings, he trained alone in the visitor's garden. His movements weren't as powerful as a Viridian's, but they had a fluid precision that spoke of discipline. It bothered her that he never acknowledged her watching him. "You don't train with the others," she said, finally approaching him directly as he completed a series of movements that resembled Viridian combat forms, but were distinctly different. Elian straightened, wiping sweat from his brow. "They prefer the climate-controlled environments. I prefer fresh air, "What combat style is that?" she demanded. "A blend of several Earth martial arts," he said, "adapted for different gravity conditions during space travel." Kira crossed her arms. "Show me." Instead of the eager-to-please response most gave her, Elian considered her for a moment. "Only if you'll show me some Viridian techniques afterward." The audacity, treating her request as a negotiation. She should have been offended, but instead felt a flicker of respect. "Agreed," she said. For the next hour, they exchanged techniques. Kira had expected to be unimpressed, but Elian's movements, while less powerful, were remarkably efficient. He used momentum and leverage in ways Viridian combat didn't consider. "Your style relies on overwhelming force," he observed, after she demonstrated a takedown, effective against most opponents but vulnerable to redirection. No one critiqued her fighting style. Ever. "You think you could redirect me?" she challenged, stepping closer. "Probably not," he admitted without embarrassment. "The physics don't work in my favor, but the principle is sound." His honesty caught her off guard again. A Viridian male would have either boasted falsely or debased himself. "You're unusual for a human," she said. "How many have you met?" "Few," she admitted. "Then perhaps I'm not unusual at all," he said with that small smile that inexplicably warmed her skin. That evening, she found him alone on a balcony overlooking the capital city. "Your delegation fears me," she said, standing beside him. "You've given them reason to." "But you don't." Elian turned to her, moonlight reflecting in his eyes. "I respect your strength, Commander. Fear is something else entirely. On Viridia, fear and respect are often the same." "That seems limiting," he said, not accusingly but thoughtfully. His words struck something deep inside her. Limiting. Was that the emptiness she sometimes felt? The hollowness of relationships built on intimidation? Acting on impulse, she moved closer. "There's a combat demonstration tomorrow. Come as my guest." "I'd be honored," he said. Their hands brushed accidentally as they turned to leave, sending an unfamiliar electricity through her body. The brief contact of his warm skin against hers triggered something primal, different from the aggression she knew so well. For a moment, she imagined those hands on her body, exploring rather than fighting. The thought should have disgusted her, intimacy with a physically weaker species. Instead, heat pooled in her lower abdomen, a hunger not for dominance but for connection. Elian seemed to sense her reaction, his gaze intensifying. For a breathless moment, the space between them seemed charged with possibility. Then he stepped back respectfully. "Good night, Commander." Kira watched him leave, conflicted emotions warring within her. No one walked away from her. Yet instead of anger, she felt anticipation building for tomorrow. This human was dangerous, not to her body, but to everything she believed about strength and worth. The combat demonstration drew crowds from across the capital. Seated beside Kira in the commander's box, Elian watched intently as pairs of Viridian warriors demonstrated combat techniques. "They're holding back," he observed quietly. Kira glanced at him, surprised by his perception. "These are demonstrations, not real fights." "No," Elian clarified, "the males especially. They're capable of more explosive movement, but they're restraining themselves." She studied him with new appreciation. Most off-worlders couldn't discern such subtleties in Viridian physiology. "In our culture, showing your full capability is reserved for actual challenges," she explained. "To reveal everything in practice would be intimate." Their eyes met and something unspoken passed between them. After the demonstrations, Kira impulsively led Elian away from the diplomatic entourage. "I want to show you something." They traveled by skimmer to the mountains overlooking the city. The path grew steep, until they reached a plateau featuring ancient stone structures. "The original combat training grounds," she explained, "before we built the modern facilities. Few visit anymore." Elian walked reverently among the weathered combat rings. "Why bring me here?" Kira hesitated. Why had she? "You asked about our culture. This is where our traditions began." In the center ring, she demonstrated the original forms of Viridian combat, movements older and more ritualistic than the efficient techniques used today. Elian watched, then joined her, mirroring her movements with surprising grace. As they moved together, Kira felt a strange harmony developing. Not the clash of challenge, but something complementary. When their arms brushed, that same electricity from the night before sparked between them. "Your heart rate increases when we touch," she said. "Viridian senses detecting his physiological changes, does it?" His voice was low, unashamed. "Are you afraid after all?" "Not fear," he said, stepping closer. "Attraction." The word hung between them, dangerous and thrilling. "I am stronger than you," she stated, needing him to acknowledge this fundamental truth. "Yes," he agreed without hesitation. "Does that make my attraction offensive?" "It should," she said honestly. "A Viridian male would never admit attraction to a stronger female. It would shame him." "I'm not Viridian," Elian reminded her. "On Earth, strength takes many forms. Physical power is just one kind." He reached up slowly, giving her time to move away, and touched her face with a gentleness that made her breath catch. No one touched her with gentleness. Only in challenge, in combat, in medical necessity. Acting on instinct, Kira pulled him against her, claiming his mouth with hers. She expected him to yield completely, to become passive under her dominance. Instead, he matched her intensity, his hands threading through her dark, wavy hair, holding her as an equal despite their physical differences. The kiss deepened, awakening sensations Kira had never experienced. Viridian mating was about proving dominance, claiming rights through strength. This felt like mutual exploration, giving and receiving pleasure rather than establishing hierarchy. When they finally separated, both breathless, Elian's eyes had darkened with desire. But he didn't push, didn't presume. "I should return you to your delegation," she said, conflicted by the new emotions surging through her. "If that's what you want," he replied. What did she want? For the first time in her life, Kira wasn't certain. That night she paced her quarters, trying to understand her reaction to this human. Physical desire she could comprehend, but this went deeper. She respected him, not for strength, but for his unflinching authenticity, his refusal to pretend fear or submission. When a soft knock came at her door, she wasn't surprised to find Elian there. Without words, she pulled him inside into another searing kiss. Their bodies came together with building urgency, purple skin against tan, her strength matched by his agility. For once, Kira didn't need to restrain herself, to prove dominance. Instead, she surrendered to sensation, to the exquisite feeling of his hands and mouth exploring her body with attentive care. Their joining was unlike anything in her experience, not a battle for supremacy, but a dance of mutual pleasure. In his arms, she wasn't Commander Kira, wasn't the strongest female, wasn't a symbol of Viridian might. She was simply herself, free to feel without calculation or constraint. Afterward, lying beside him, Kira realized with startling clarity that she had never before felt so powerful, or so vulnerable. Word spread quickly through the capital. Commander Kira had taken the human Elian Reyes as her companion. The diplomatic mission, originally scheduled for 10 days, extended into its third week. For Kira, the world had shifted on its axis. Nights spent in Elian's arms taught her sensations she'd never imagined. The power of vulnerability, the strength and tenderness. Days brought new perspectives as she saw her culture through his eyes. Not everyone approved. Talix, her second-in-command, confronted her after morning drills. "The warriors talk, Commander. They question your judgment, consorting with weakness." "Elian isn't weak," she replied sharply. "He couldn't defeat a Viridian child in combat." Talix scoffed. Kira stepped closer, her voice dangerously low. "Is combat the only measure of strength, Talix?" The question hung between them, heretical by Viridian standards. Later, walking with Elian through the botanical gardens, she broached the subject. "My people don't understand what I see in you. And what do you see?" he asked. She considered carefully. "Someone who faces what he cannot defeat without surrendering his dignity. Someone who seeks to understand rather than control." She paused. "Someone who sees me, not just my strength." Elian took her hand, a gesture that once would have seemed presumptuous but now felt natural. "On Earth we have a saying, true courage isn't the absence of fear but acting despite it." "You've never shown fear of me," she said. "I've felt it," he admitted. "But fear doesn't have to control us. Neither does strength." That evening they attended a formal reception where the final trade agreements would be announced. Kira wore her ceremonial armor. Elian wore the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. The atmosphere was tense with undercurrents. As they entered, conversations hushed, then resumed with pointed intensity. Kira caught fragments. Commander's human pet. Dishonors her position. Weakness spreading like disease. Midway through the reception, Drax, a hulking warrior known for his ambition, approached them. He bowed to Kira with exaggerated formality, then straightened, deliberately knocking into Elian with enough force to make him stumble. "Forgive me," Drax said with mock sincerity. "I forgot how fragile humans are." Kira felt rage build, but before she could respond, Elian steadied himself and smiled. "No harm done, though in diplomatic circles such accidents can sometimes be misinterpreted as hostility. As can certain relationships," Drax countered, eyes flicking between them. "Is there a challenge in your words, warrior?" Kira demanded, hand moving to her ceremonial blade. "Not to you, Commander," Drax said. "But perhaps your human would care to demonstrate the qualities that have so captivated you." The room fell silent. Drax had cleverly navigated Viridian custom, challenging not Kira directly, which would be proper protocol, but her choice of companion. Elian stepped forward before Kira could intervene. "I accept." "No," Kira said sharply. "He's baiting you. Viridian strength isn't the only kind of strength," Elian finished quietly. "You know that now." The combat ring was prepared. Attendance was mandatory. The entire diplomatic mission and all ranking warriors gathered to watch. "This is madness," Kira hissed as Elian removed his formal jacket. "He's twice your mass, evolved for triple gravity. You cannot win. Winning isn't always about defeating the opponent," Elian said calmly. The match began. As expected, Drax attacked with overwhelming force. Elian didn't attempt to match strength with strength. Instead, using the Viridian's momentum against him, redirecting rather than blocking. For several minutes, he managed to avoid serious injury, his movements fluid and precise. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the human evaded Drax's increasingly frustrated attacks. But physics couldn't be denied forever. Eventually, Drax connected with a powerful blow that sent Elian sprawling. The human rose slowly, blood trickling from his mouth. Drax moved in for the finish but stopped short when Elian straightened and simply stood, arms at his sides, facing him directly. "Defend yourself," Drax demanded. "No," Elian said clearly. "I've made my point." "What point?" "That you're weak? That I can face you without fear," Elian replied, loud enough for all to hear. "That strength without wisdom is just brutality. That I won't be what I'm not, even to avoid pain." His eyes found Kira's across the ring. "Some things are worth enduring pain for." In that moment, something shifted in the collective consciousness of the gathering. The human hadn't won, but neither had he broken. He stood bloodied but dignified, refusing to cower or beg. Drax raised his fist for another blow, but Kira's voice cut through the arena. "Enough." All eyes turned to her as she stepped into the ring. "The human has shown more courage than many warriors," she declared. "He faced what he could not defeat, without surrendering his honor or principles." "Is that not strength?" Murmurs spread through the crowd. Challenge, confusion, consideration. "Those who measure worth only in physical dominance understand neither leadership nor alliance," she continued. "We sought Earth as allies for their different perspectives, yet mocked them for the very differences that could strengthen us." She walked to Elian's side, taking his hand publicly. "I choose this man not despite his differences, but because of them. Anyone who challenges my choice challenges me directly." No one stepped forward. That night, as she tended his injuries, Elian watched her with those ocean-deep eyes. "You risked everything," he said softly. "Perhaps it was time for Viridia to evolve," she replied, pressing a gentle kiss to his bruised knuckles. 6 months later, Kira stood on the observation deck of the Earth diplomatic compound, watching twin moons rise over the Viridian capital. Behind her, the reception continued, celebrating the official opening of the first permanent Earth embassy on Viridia. Much had changed. Her defense of Elian had sparked intense debate among the ruling council. Some called for her removal. Others recognized the wisdom in her words. In the end, her record of service and the successful trade negotiations had protected her position. More importantly, the incident had started conversations about Viridian culture that were long overdue. Not revolution, but evolution, questioning whether physical strength alone should determine worth. Deep thoughts. Elian's voice came from behind her as his arms encircled her waist. She leaned back against him, still marveling at how natural it felt. Remembering when I thought your inability to break bones was a weakness, he chuckled, the vibration pleasant against her back. And now? Now I understand there are many kinds of strength. She turned in his arms. Your assignment ends soon. The temporary diplomatic mission had extended repeatedly, but eventually Earth would recall him or assign him elsewhere. About that, Elian said, something cautious in his expression. I've been offered a permanent position here, Earth's first cultural attaché to Viridia. Hope flared in Kira's chest. You're staying? If you want me to. In answer, she kissed him deeply, not caring who might see through the transparent walls of the observation deck. When they parted, Elian took her hand, leading her further away from the reception. There's something else. On Earth, when two people choose each other, there's a custom. From his pocket, he produced a small box containing a ring inlaid with purple stones that matched her skin. On Earth, this symbolizes a permanent bond, he explained. I know Viridians don't practice marriage the same way, but… Yes, she interrupted, surprising herself with the immediacy of her response. His smile was brilliant as he slipped the ring onto her finger. I haven't explained what it means yet. It means you're mine and I'm yours, she said simply. The details are just cultural decoration. Later that night, in the privacy of the quarters they now shared, their bodies came together with the familiar electricity that never diminished. Purple skin against tan, strength against agility, their differences creating perfect harmony rather than discord. Afterward, lying in his arms, Kira traced patterns on his chest, thinking of their future. Their relationship had already changed her society in small but significant ways. Young female warriors now spoke of finding partners who complemented their strength rather than submitted to it. Male warriors began questioning the shame associated with gentleness. You're going to change Viridia, Elian murmured, seeming to read her thoughts. We already have, she corrected. Not by force, but by example. He kissed her forehead. That's the strongest way to create lasting change. Kira had once believed true strength lay in dominance, in making others flinch before her power. Now she understood differently. Real strength was standing unflinching before challenges. Was vulnerability with the right person, was having the courage to question traditions without destroying their foundations. The council has asked me to develop a new training program, she told him, incorporating Earth techniques with traditional Viridian combat. Integration rather than dominance, he observed. Progress. Slow progress, she cautioned. Change doesn't happen overnight. The important changes never do, he agreed, pulling her closer. As sleep claimed them, Kira reflected on the journey that had brought them together. She had once been undefeated, untouchable, and utterly alone. Now she had something far more precious than dominance, partnership with someone who never flinched from her strength but showed her new kinds of power she'd never imagined. A planet where dominance had always decided worth. They were writing a new definition of strength together, one that valued courage, resilience, and the power of connection above all else. The warrior who had never been defeated had finally surrendered her heart, and in doing so had found her greatest victory.